So I'm going to explain to you a method that you can use to make your own custom magic circle, and I'm going to break up the process in 3 steps. Step 1, figure out a technique. Step 2, figure out the look. And step 3, make the actual design of that circle. So we start out with step 1, figuring out the technique. I'm going to add a simple plane. I'm going to scale it down on the y-axis to make it a really thin line, because we want to have thin lines that are going to be illuminated and glowing, and parts of them are going to be invisible. So we practice, we start out with this simple plane, scale it down on the y, and then I'm going to apply object, apply scale. So now it's an actual very thin line. You could imagine that we later bend this object, but for now, figuring out the technique, how do we make parts of it glow and other parts disappear. So in UV editing, we already have this plane. Used to be square. We made it smaller, but in UV it's still the same. The UV map. We can let's see. Does it do that? Yes, it all unwrapped it again. Select the plane and UV unwrap, and it now has re-unwrapped that plane. So the idea is we put an image behind this, and the parts of this little rectangle that are going to be in the white parts or bright parts, that those parts are going to be glowing, and the other parts are going to be in the dark. That is the idea. So what we need is a texture that actually has a glow. Add new, call it glow. Okay, 1000 by 1000. Let's make a bright white glow in the center, and I want my stroke to be a straight line like this. Okay, and then we have to add that texture so that it is being projected onto this rectangle. But in order to do that, it needs a material. It doesn't have a material yet. It's the standard default Blender material. It doesn't do anything. Click new, and here we could change the color of this object. It's a bit difficult to see. Here we can see the colors, right? We want to have it glow pink, and then have the emission strength determine how the emission strength is going to then be determined by this image here. So in order to do that, I add the image node, image texture, select the glow that we already made, and plug the color into the strength. And now you can see wherever it's in the black, it's dark, and wherever it's in the white, it is glowing. And then we can move this around. Technically, if you're going to UV, select this UV island, move it around. Let's see. Does that update? Yes. Yes. Yeah, you can imagine this image repeats itself in a grid. So this part here is basically in the next copy of that, because here in the shading we say it repeats. This glow texture, we say it repeats, then it does. If we don't clip, then it's going to be cut off. This extends out, so there is no image. If you say repeat, then it does. So we can't we can't actually, that's impractical to move this thing back and forth and then shoot a frame, a render. That's impractical. What we can do is move this with another node. That would be the mapping node. And here we could change the location of this image. We plug the vector into the vector. And then if we change this, it should come into view, but it's a different scale, it's a different rotation and everything. You see it appear and disappear. But we want to use our UV coordinates. We want to have this setup here be determining where the texture ends up being. So we do that by adding a texture coordinate node and plug the UV into the vector. Now it takes the UV setup that we have here and projects it onto this object. Okay, so now we can animate this properly. Location, move it around, and it works. Okay, if I positive numbers and it goes to the left, negative numbers it goes to the right. So we could just change that by rotating this 180 degrees if we wanted to, and then yeah, depends on what you like. Actually, it doesn't really matter at the end. So now we have a setup where the emission strength is going to be determined by our UV coordinates. Okay, this is the setup. Step 2, now we can determine the look of our which is not yet a magic circle, but we want to determine the look. And first I changed the look of the world to make it black, to make our glowing material stand out. Maybe not completely black, maybe darker, but have it be bluish, a little bit like this. Okay, so we want to have this glow, and there's a really nice function in the rendering engine, ED bloom. You see, it added a little bit of extra halo, a glow effect to wherever it is bright. That is what we want. So next step is we still see the parts that are in the dark. They're still visible and it looks kind of ugly. We want this to be invisible and then have like a nice gradient that that turns into a fully bright plasma-like magic circle thing. So what we could do is plug the same thing into the alpha, meaning alpha value of 0 is supposed to be invisible or see-through, and an alpha value of 1 means it's fully opaque and you can't see through it, which is exactly what we want. But we can still see parts of the object, but now where it's basically reaches 0, it's completely black, and the parts where it's not really 0, it's above 0 but also not 1, those are gray with a gradient. And that is a setting you have to change in the material. Go select that object, go to material properties, scroll down, and this is where we tell Blender in the blend mode what it should do with materials, how it blends with the rest of the world. And now we can see all the values between black and white are being blurred. So that's exactly what we want. It changed to alpha hashed or alpha blend. Alpha Blend does a similar thing, but wait a second, where's my camera? The camera got out of control. I don't even know where I am anymore. Where am I? This. I quickly bring this back into view so I can properly rotate around. Okay, good. Alpha Blend does a similar thing, but it's a perfectly smooth transition. But I like the look of Alpha Hashed, adding a little bit of noise. Okay, and okay, now we have the setup, and I want to increase the strength of this glow. There's supposed to be like a really bright glow, and for that, I already have the strength be determined by our texture, but it's not strong enough. It's not strong enough. I have to amplify the strength of this, and I achieved that with converter, math node, and multiply this. The number that comes out of here, black is 0, white is 1, then that number, multiply that by 100, and there's going to be a really bright glow. If I make this scale Y, if I make this really thin, oh yeah, that looks beautiful. Yeah, that looks good. So now we have the setup. We have found a technique to get the effect that we want, that we can animate. Right, location, move the location. Right, we can animate this. We have determined the look. That's what we want our magic circle to look like, and all we have to do now is actually design the magic circle. And that means object delete. I don't want this. The material is still there, but now I'm going to actually make the circle. I'm going to back into solid view because that makes it a little bit easier to model things. So I'm going to add a curve object, circle, go over to object data properties on the geometry, bevel, depth, give it some volume. If I make it real thick, it looks like a donut. I don't want a donut, I want a really thin line, so I hit shift to make really fine adjustments to this number. I give it a really small number like this. This is fine. This is fine. So good. Now we have this a circle. I'm going to make a pattern. Don't you worry. But remember, we have to have a UV setup, and right now this is not UV. It's not properly unwrapped. I convert this curve object to a mesh object, and now I have the full geometry just the way I want it to. That I can now edit. So I go here. I want this circle to be, going to edit mode. I want this circle to be cut here along this edge, and then also along this edge. I alt click to select the edge loop. This edge that goes around the tube, and this edge, I want it to be cut here. So I'm going to select that, mark it as a seam, mark seam. Where's mark seam? Where's mark seam? Edge, mark seam, right. Now it's highlighted differently. It's a little bit red. So you see that is a seam. And then this edge, I'll click on the edge. So edge, mark seam. And if we take, if we had a ring of paper like that, we cut it here, we cut it along the edge that goes around, then we can unroll this into a really thin, flat piece of paper, you could imagine. And Blender calls that UV Unwrap. In fact, I think every 3D software calls it UV Unwrap. Anyway, we go into UV editing, select all. These are all the individual faces. Those here, they're already here, but we want a single long strip, just like we had before. And select all, have them all UV Unwrap. Now it has cut here and there along this ring and unwrapped it into a single long strip of faces. I take this over, put it into the middle, rotate it around. I think rotate to left. It does exactly what I want. Maybe scale it down a bit, or don't even have to scale that. And now we have right, UV editing. Select the glow texture. There we go. Here we have it. Right here. This is basically the same setup as we had before, but with lots of smaller faces all in one grid. Now we should have the same setup as before. Where's my circle? Can't see it anymore. There it is. Right, I was too close. Good. Now this object is a new object. It doesn't have a material yet, but we already made the material. This material, right here. Same setup. I just gave it a material that we already made before, and again change the location of this texture relative to the object, and it will be animatable. Very easy. So what I'm doing now is let me get I want to go into edit mode. Select the object, go into edit mode. We're still in the same object. I'm not moving the object around, I'm moving the geometry within the object around. Move that up. Move it up a little bit further, maybe leave some room in the center, and go in the front view. I'm going to rotate this. Rotate, control makes me snap it to whole numbers, and rotate it by like 5 to 10 degrees. And now what I'm doing, this is now slightly tilted. I can use the spin function. Yeah, that's the handle, to multiply this object several times. I intend to do a 360 degree, but I'm not really I want to change some of the settings. So when I do an operation, you can change the operation down here in the spin operation that I just did. I want to modify and give it exact values. Steps, it should do 8. Use duplicates and spin it around by 360 degrees. Now they're properly aligned. These copies of the circle are being properly distributed in a 360 pattern, and I don't have to calculate the location of every single copy of this circle. Now we're still in the same object. This is still the same object, but we added geometry. So now I have this little pattern that has some volume and thickness to it, because I tilted the circle before I copied it. It is now 3-dimensional, which looks really cool to me. And since I already pre-unwrapped the first circle, they all use the same select all. They all use the same UV island. This is a UV island. They all use the same UV island. So whatever is illuminated here will be illuminated on that equivalent object. and that's how it looks right now. Deselect, right, location, change the location of the texture, and it will be animated. It looks nice. I make a few more tweaks, go back, layout, edit mode, and add another thing. Add circle in the center, scale that down, S for scale. E for extrude, I want to extrude, but I want to cancel that extrusion because I want to scale that out. So now I have a smaller circle in the center, and I want to use this as a handle, as a thing to grab, because now I'm going to activate proportional editing, and when I change the position of a vertex, or if I change the position of this thing, it will grab the rest of the geometry with it. You see, I can move it around, and I can rotate it, and everything in that circle of influence here will follow. And I can change the size of this by scrolling the mouse wheel. See, everything that I swirl around swirls with it. And I cancel that with a right click because I want to use a different interpolation. I want to use a different way how it's going to be reacting. If I say linear, it is going to be different than if I'd say constant. Right, now everything that is inside this circle of influence is going to be moved exactly with the rotation of the center. That's not what I want, but I want to show you, demonstrate you how different options affect this process differently. I want to use usually I use sphere, and that gives me a nice nice effect usually. Let's see, because I want to stretch out the ends a little bit. See, it stretched out the end of this, giving it more surface area to be visible. Now go to the side view and then also move it up to give this whole construct a little bulge, like it would be a shield. Imagine this was a shield. This magic circle is a shield, and it has curvature and three-dimensionality. And that is basically it for now. Object mode. That's the shape. And that's how it looks in shading, properly shaded. It looks like it has the shape of a shield. And we can still animate this texture. And here these stretched out ends, I have a little bit more surface area. That's why they glow a little bit more. They have more to glow with. It's still animatable. Good. This is now our circle design. This is finished. We have a nice nice environment. It looks good. We have an animation. Technically, so we could keyframe this. So what I do is go into location X coordinates and type in hashtag frame. Now it takes the frame number and divide that by, let's say, 45 to make it a little bit slower. So with every frame, it takes the current frame number. It says it's on frame 1, divides that number by 45, and inputs the value. And with the next frame, it moves a little bit forward. So yes, this is what I want to do. I want to grab this to add the timeline, and now I can click on it and it works. Nice little magic circle animation. Now you can use that same technique of finding out what you want. This is how you want to animate things. Then design the look. And then step 3, design your own setup. Now I just made extra circles, spun them around, twisted, morphed, and warped them, gave them a different shape. You can have your own different unique design. You can have a flat design, you can have a 3D design, you can make it a cube, circular. I don't know. Now it's up to you. You know the technique. You know how to change the look of things. You can change the material settings. You can change the color. You can add more strength. Does it even work? I don't know. At some point it's supposed to be really bright. Or we lower the strength. Maybe make it really subtle. If you go negative, it actually changes the color. It's the opposite color. Green is the opposite color of pink. That's why if you go negative with the strength, it gets the opposite color. Now this is a very subtle. This is a very bright. And I just keep that value. You can change the value as you want. You can have it be transparent or not. And that's the setup. Now you can have some fun, I guess. Maybe I'll do another tutorial, but I'm not gonna promise anything. Okay, bye.